Welcome to day 10 of the 12 Days of Christmas video series. A video series meant to help you get clear on what's really holding you back from the life you want. Think of it as our gift to you. Who are we?
You are Ivana Robinson, a certified life and leadership coach specializing in helping folks own what it is that they actually want and give fewer fucks about what other people think.
That's true, that is me. And you are Adelia Aborshade, financial confidence coach, relocation specialist, and the other co-host of Reclaim the Retreat.
All right, so for the last 9 days, we have been discussing all that would go into making your life different 1 year from now.
Yes, more fulfilling, more exciting, more whatever it is you want it to be.
And we've also discussed the changes that might have to take place and the feelings making those changes might bring up. You know, changing your life, making it remarkably different in 12 months, that could sound crazy, far-fetched, maybe low-key ridiculous.
Yeah, but I think that is kind of a necessary part of the process. I think you might find that there are people who don't fully understand what it is that you want for yourself or what you're trying to do. That may be a lack of support. It may appear to be that way just because it is different from what other people around you are doing.
And so that might mean that, if you get feedback about like, oh, I've never heard of anybody wanting to do that, blah, 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 you might have to be the first person to do this thing. And that might mean that your loved ones, your friends have never seen anybody do that and they don't know. Their response to you is like, because they don't know how to process that, how to respond to that, because here you are talking about making these changes and doing something that seems out of the realm of possibility to them.
Yes, I would argue it's not even necessarily out of the realm of possibility so much as they either never took that opportunity, did not feel confident enough to take that opportunity, whatever it is. And the fact that you are doing so is a reminder of that. And it doesn't always feel so great for them.
And so they may say some things, maybe directly, maybe offhand. It might be not so much something specifically that they say, but it's the vibe. It's how they react that might make you feel unsupported. That's not your problem if they can't see your vision and get with your program.
Mm-hmm. I do think we often think of support as people joining in on the process or like being wholeheartedly involved in it, when I don't know that is necessarily has to be the case. I think there are other ways for people to be on your side or to support you. But also it is common for, I think especially for the people who love us, to share their opinions or advice when they haven't necessarily done the things that you want to do, the thing you're trying to do. They want to be helpful.
Because people have really they don't have any qualms about telling you how they feel about your decision to do a thing, and they feel free to give you their opinion on something that they have never done. And let's think about that for a second. You're going to tell somebody whether or not something is a good idea or a good move for them, and you have no frame of reference.
That sounds so ridiculous. But I think it is common. I guess I think of it very much coming from the parent-child dynamic, in that for a good chunk of our lives, right, your parents did know more stuff than you did, right? Like they are kind of the default group you go to when you have questions about how to do something, when you are trying to figure out how to move through the world. But the reality is is always a point in time where you're, at least in certain regards, you are going to surpass them. Or in the case of now, the world is so different from the world that like my mother was working in or my mother was growing up in, that she can't help me.
She shouldn't be giving you advice.
No.
She might want to.
She wants to and she will, but it's also like that is not relevant to how the world works today. Okay. You know, and I think that it is hard for, I think, parents to sometimes grapple with, of like they don't know more than you do, but I think it's also hard for us as children sometimes to navigate that shift in dynamics.
I think when you are faced with, I don't want to call them unsupportive people, but people who respond to your plans in a way that is not necessarily affirming, doesn't feel encouraging. It's important to remember that what they're saying doesn't really matter. If you are trying to make these changes in order for you to be happier, more fulfilled, that's what matters, because you deserve to be happy.
Yes. And I think in particular, we tend to be taking on the opinions, advice, whatever, from people who not only have never done the thing, but also don't have a stake in the game, right? It is different if you choosing to quit your job is going to throw the entire household out of whack, right? Like that is something we probably talk about that needs to be, right? That's not necessarily a single decision you get to make on your own necessarily. But that is usually not the case for many of us when it comes to, you know, parents or maybe even some of our friends, of like, whether or not this thing is quote unquote successful, whatever it is we mean by that, their lives are not affected by that. And so they don't get to, their opinion does not get to hold as much weight, I believe. I would also say, like, you deserve to be happy. You deserve to go after the things that you want. And it is important that you give yourself permission to believe this. You know, make that your own mantra, your morning affirmation, whatever it is you need. But you have to go into this feeling confident and secure in your decision. Because the outcome, we don't necessarily have control over that, right? Like there's a lot of things that could change between today and a year from now. There's a lot of things that can change between today and tomorrow. But if you know that this decision is aligned with your values, what it is that you want to prioritize in your life, what it is that makes you happy, that is going to, create the world that you want to live in, then you move forward with that. That is very different than needing the validation from others that it is the quote unquote right thing to do.
If you have been operating from a space where the validation of other people has played a very strong role, you're going to have to be sort of steadfast in reminding yourself that you deserve this. You deserve to be happy, and their validation of this thing that you have decided to do does not, their validation or they're like, no, girl, you shouldn't be doing that, plays no role, has no weight in you deserving to be happy. Now, that is not to say, particularly if you are someone who, you're trying to step away from needing that validation from other people, or needing, if you're coming from that place and people are not on the same page with you, which, if we're going to be real, that's probably what you're going to encounter. Because anytime people make large changes to their life, whether or not it impacts other people or not, folks always got something to say.
Yeah, it's a reminder of what it is they have not done, what it is they want to be doing, You know, I think it comes up a lot with like gender discourse. As you see people trying to live as their more authentic selves, that does not affect other individuals. And yet people tend to have a lot of feelings and opinions about it because it is a reminder that I thought I had to live life in this way.
And you're
out here
throwing away the script.
Yes, doing what it is you want to do. And that makes me unhappy. It makes me angry, you know, but that has to do with them. That doesn't actually have to do with you and your decisions.
And so when and if you are faced with folks having things to say, maybe negative things, as Ivana just said, that's really an expression of their discomfort. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things you're going to have to decide for yourself is if that discomfort, be it other folks or be it your own, because making change can be uncomfortable, is that discomfort more important than your dissatisfaction with how you're living your life right now? Mm-hmm. You've got to decide what's more important. And hey, if you decide this is way too uncomfortable for me, that is a valid choice, but it's your choice to make.
Yes. And you have to own that choice, right? I think it's taking accountability for whatever it is that you choose, because you can't decide to, you know, appease others and then be upset that you did it. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like if that's the thing that you're doing, then go all in for that thing. Because I'm a firm believer that you know the best for you over anyone else. And it's trusting that and trusting that you know what's best for you. And I mean that based on what we know today, the information we have, the circumstances, what it is that we want, that is from the place from which we're making decisions. Now, tomorrow, you may have more data, new information that indicates, okay, maybe I need to make a new, different decision, and that's okay too. I think quite often we think because we have made a decision, we have to stick with it, see it all the way through, which sometimes is, I think, definitely the way to go, but you don't have to suffer through just because the you of 5 years ago decided you wanted something, because maybe the you of today don't want that thing.
And that's okay. That's okay. It might not feel all the time that you know what's best for you, but you do. Even if you are embarking on something that is completely new. You've never done it. You don't know anybody who's ever done it. You've Googled. You can't find anybody in your state who has ever done the thing. And because we often see like a lack of knowledge, lack of experience means like, oh, I have no business being here at all. But the fact that this is a desire of yours that's coming from you tells me that there is some part of you that knows this is where you're supposed to be. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And, you know, it can be scary. We've talked about fear. You know, it's normal to be afraid when you start something new that you don't have any experience with. But you have to remind yourself, or maybe you don't have to remind yourself, I'm going to remind you that you are capable of in ways that you've never imagined.
Yes. I think we often confuse confidence with, I know everything, when in reality, confidence comes from knowing you can figure it out. Because I don't know everything, and there's a lot of things I maybe need to know that I don't know that I need to know them yet. But the me of today knows that I have the ability to figure it out, right? Whether that be my own common sense, whether that be knowing where to go, where to search, asking questions. But like, I've made it to this part of adulthood without having all of the answers. And I'm here and I'm thriving. So like, you can figure this out too.
we get so caught up in, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, first of all, you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it. And just because you don't know it doesn't mean you can't figure it out. You can't eventually know it. We are often so good at giving other people that kind of grace to figure things out, giving them a little time to stumble before they put it all together. But we often don't give ourselves that.
No.
And we want to make sure that you are being kind to yourself and you are giving yourself grace as you make these changes so that you can have a more fulfilling, different life 12 months from now.
Yes. And people will definitely get on board. Like, if you stay committed to you and to the things that you want, people will see the fruits of that and get on board as well.
And if they don't, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. I will say that if you are in a situation where maybe people are sharing their opinions, their quote unquote advice that you did not ask for, this is where setting boundaries comes into play, because you do not have to listen to it. You do not have to accept it. Change the topic of conversation. You can say, hey, I get you have shared how you feel if I hear you, but I don't need to hear that anymore. Here's what I'm doing. Whether or not you are on board, we don't have to talk about it. Like, there is no obligation to hear them out, because just because someone is maybe quote unquote scared for you, concerned, whatever, that does not mean that you need to take on that fear for yourself. I will say that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You don't need to bring that in. They can be afraid. That's their business. But it ain't gotta be your business.
Yes. I think that goes back to, I guess it was maybe in people pleasing, where we kind of talked about, like, other people's feelings are their responsibility. You do not have control over that. And so rather than spend your time and energy trying to make someone okay with what it is that you do, focus on you. Are you okay?
Prime example of this. When I left the U.S. in 2016, I accepted a job in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, which I believe was the number 2 murder capital of the world. The number 1 murder capital was another city in Honduras as well. Not only did I take that job, I moved there with my 15-year-old kid.
And I'm sure people had thoughts about that.
Yes, they did. But, and they were allowed to have those thoughts and have those feelings, but I made that decision based off of research I did personally, how it worked into my greater plan for myself. But that would have been an easy place for me to have put something I wanted on hold, because other people who were concerned or whatever had stuff to say.
Yeah. No, I know when I quit my job in 2020, it was around the time that my grandfather was dying, and so we had extended family in town. And I had an uncle who was like, well, I thought you liked your job. Like, why are you quitting this good job, right? And I was like, well, I don't anymore. It's as simple as that. Like, I don't know why we're having this conversation, but, and everyone wants to ask you, well, what are you doing next? And I had to become comfortable with, I don't know, being a complete answer, right? Our idea that we need to know or have all the answers is rarely about us and our own comfort. It is about, we want to have something to say when someone asks us, right? So that we can prove that we know what we're doing, that we have it all together. And I didn't. I had ideas, I had things I wanted to do, and that's what I was focused on. But I didn't need them to be on board. They weren't helping me pay my bills. They weren't, right? They weren't there to do the work with me. And so I had to just be like, I don't know what comes next for me, and that's okay.
So again, the important thing here is you've made the decision to make some changes in your life. And how those changes are received by other people not really your problem.
We share all of this to say that it is important that you learn to trust yourself and stay committed to the things that you want, because there are going to be so many, I don't even want to call them obstacles because I feel like that makes them more,
It gives them more power.
Yes, but but there is always going to be some reason for you to not, right? To keep your life exactly how it is, to continue down the path that you're on. And there's nothing wrong with that if that is what you want. But if there is something you want that is different than what it is right now, go for it.
So did this conversation resonate with you? In what way? Let us know in the comments, because we want to know. We're curious. We're nosy.
Let's have this conversation.
If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If there is somebody in your life who you think could benefit from hearing this conversation, please share the video with them. Make sure that you have subscribed to the channel if you haven't already, because you want to let YouTube know that you want more of this kind of content in your feed. And the easiest way to do that is to hit the subscribe button.
Yes. And if you've done all that, make sure you're on our mailing list. Go to reclaimtheretreat.com. The link is in the description to join our mailing list. That is really where we get into the deep stuff and where you can find out more about all of the other things that we're doing throughout the year.